Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. After facing backlash and boycott, it's time for popular YouTuber and podcaster Ranveer Allabadia to get back to business. Yes, the Supreme Court has granted him permission to resume uploading his podcasts and shows on social media. Now, this ruling follows a rather emotional appeal from Allahabadia, who had urged the court to allow him to continue airing episodes of his podcast, The Ranveer Show, emphasizing that was his only source of livelihood, not just for him, but also for the 280 employees and their families that are dependent on him. The Supreme Court acknowledged this plea and noted that since he has never defended his remarks, it's willing to give him the benefit of doubt, hoping that he has realized his mistake. So Allahabadia is free to go on air again, but with a catch. The Supreme Court has said that he must ensure that his content adheres to standards of decency and morality, whatever they may be. While there was relief to Ranveer, there was also rebuke for his co-panelist on that ill-fated show of India's Got Latent, Samay. The court took a strong stance against his controversial comments made in Canada amid the row and said that the young generation and people like Samay think that they're quote-unquote over-smart and can do anything and say anything, but they don't know where the jurisdiction of the top court enjoys. Justice Suryakant, without mincing any words, warned that if Samay and other YouTubers don't mend their ways now, the court will know how to handle them. Meanwhile, in an effort to prevent future issues involving social media content, the Supreme Court has also directed the government to draft a regulatory framework for social media. This framework is expected to be made public for feedback for all stakeholders. The court has also clarified that it does not want to impose censorship, but there needs to be some sort of control. It has also emphasized that humor is something the whole family should be able to enjoy. Using vulgar language is not humor, neither is it creativity. So viewers, is regulation the only solution to curb unfiltered content? And does it end up stifling creativity and freedom of expression? If there is a Lakshman Rekha that needs to be drawn between responsibility and citizenship in an age where the internet's power is unmatched, where do we draw this? Advocate Kapil Madan continues to stay on with us, but also having someone from the Supreme Court as Shashank Shekhar Jha. I'll come to you, Shashank, first, and we'll try and make this a quick face-off. Shashank, at the end of the day, it's been a month since the comments came out and all the backlash that happened. So many cases were filed against Ranveer Allahabadia, so many summons were issued. At the end of the day, he is finally allowed to make his content again. Did we end up overreacting for the past 1 month? Because, let's be honest, what has happened today is what ideally should have happened in the first week itself. Ranveer Allahabadia had apologized. He had said that he will never repeat his comments. He has learned his lessons, and he should be continued to go along with his job.
Namaste, Ritangshu ji and my fellow panelists here. Ritangshu ji, it's not only about this particular show or this particular gentleman. It's about a larger magnitude which Honorable Supreme Court is talking about. See, when we are in a public domain and making such nasty comments, we must acknowledge this fact that this is a country of 140 plus crore population having a very diverse, rich cultural heritage. So when we are making such comments, we must understand that we are being appreciated by people at large, but we may be criticized by people at large, and feelings of those may be hurt by the comments made on the show. So Honorable Supreme Court was very justified in granting the protection to Ranveer Allahabadia, because it is a settled law that when more than one state is behind you, as in the police, you may get protection from Honorable Supreme Court. Plus, when there is a warrant of arrest against you, Supreme Court may grant you protection from those arrests. However, Supreme Court has also candidly made this very sure that Ranveer Allahabadia cannot make further shows. So today, the Honorable Supreme Court has granted Ranveer Allahabadia the permission to manage his own shows, which he is doing as a podcast. However, what I liked as a law practitioner was that Honorable Supreme Court did not get into the domain of regulating what should be aired and what should not be aired. It actually asked the government of the day to actually formulate some kind of guidelines. So had Supreme Court gone into that domain, I would have objected. However, Supreme Court asking the government of the day or the parliament to make such regulations is very much welcome, because you must be remembering that in past few years, the OTT platforms and other platforms have actually promoted such violent activities, and I was one of them who approached Honorable Supreme Court seeking guidelines on OTT platforms.
The problem is, Shashank Shekhar Jha, the government of the day did try to come up with a bill to try and content and regulate online content, which was the Draft Broadcasters Bill. And it was so controversial that the bill had to be put on cold storage. And many people believe that the so-called overreaction or the reaction to this entire episode is a window for the government to bring that legislation back. in a renewed form. Advocate Kapil Madan, the problem is that after 1 month, for 1 month, I've heard a lot of comments about culture being offended, about moral values being changed, and these are words which the Supreme Court has ruled as well. The problem is I still don't know what exactly constitutes and comes and defines culture or moral heritage here. If I drop an F bomb here, I might not find it offensive, but you may find it offensive. If you drop an S bomb here, you may be fine with it, but Mr. Shashank ji might not have a problem with it. So in a country where 140 crore people can have their own individual and unique perspectives about what is offensive, what is not, how does any government, even with pure intentions, try and come up with a regulation content which does not border into censorship?
So, Ritanshu, let me say one thing. We are all losing sight of the fact that what is considered as obscene by, in our law has been reiterated by the Supreme Court. Something can be, uncivil. Some statements can be, immoral, uncivilized, but that does not, satisfy or, comes under the definition of obscene, because there are a different standard which will define whether a particular statement is obscene or not. I absolutely agree with you. I think you have, in your question itself, you have given the perspective to our viewers that one thing could be, immoral insofar as my standards of comprehensions are concerned, but it may not necessarily be true in your case. So yeah. I agree with you. But having said that, the test in my understanding should be, unless someone's speech is inciting any kind of violence, unless someone's speech or a statement comes under the definition of the words obscene as we understand, by way of our Honorable Supreme Court judgment, I think our Constitution permits you to say, and, you should just not be punished because you have made certain statements, which as per someone else's standard or comprehension may be inconvenient for him. So, it's a very, thin line on which the court has to decide. But to, lodge FIRs against someone, to, put people in jail just because they have made some sort of statement which are inconvenient, I think this is not something that our Constitution permits.
And we have not heard anything from the Supreme Court over whether this was an overreaction or not. The Supreme Court, in fact, said that, if you allow Allahabadia to go ahead with the show, there will be more FIRs filed, as if that is something that is okay with it. Shashank Shekhar, okay, let's assume that, yes, we need to have some kind of regulation content which will ensure that if something is blatantly vulgar, something is obscene, something incites sexual violence against children or sexual violence against women or something which incites violence or rights itself, fine. That should be regulated, that should be banned. But can we trust the government to draw a line by saying that, okay, if your content violates these parameters which I've mentioned, it's fine. But if your content offends me or attacks me politically or attacks or criticizes me at this point, I will not use that. I will not use this law to shut you down just because my ego has been affected. Can any government really assure that?
Ritangshu ji, Kapil is an advocate. I don't know why he is making such remarks here. See, the statement made on the show was against parents of particular and asking a particular fellow to join in their sexual activities. I don't know how moral or immoral can be, and how can a debate on that ground can be here on this show. See, Honorable Supreme Court was very clear when it said, and I quote, that we are not living in an ivory tower and we understand as to where it has been copied, and we also need to understand our cultural background. So someone saying that how can we have a narrow line, I don't understand here. See, we need to understand that satire and humor is very much different from vulgarity. So you cannot just say that because it is not written in Constitution, tomorrow I will try to defend porn activities on YouTube or say some other platform. There should be a clear.
No, but the problem is we live in a country where cartoonists have been arrested. Satirists have been threatened. Cartoonists have been arrested. Very recently, a magazine in Tamil Nadu, I think, came up with a cartoon which showed the Prime Minister in a poor light after his visit from Donald Trump. And right after that, that website was shut down. I don't know whether it's related or not. But Advocate Kapil Madan, I'm running short of time. I have a minute left. So because Shashank Shekhar has responded to you, I'll give you the chance to counter and then I'll wrap it up.
So let me just say one thing here. I think, Mr. Shashank Shekhar didn't heard me right. I have never commented on what has been said by Allahabadia. My remarks were not on what was said. I mean, whether that comes under the definition of obscenity or vulgarity, that is for the courts to decide. But I gave a general proposition of the law that if you make a statement which is uncivilized, unmoral, unfortunately, under the Indian Penal Code, that is not a punishable offense. That's the limited point I'm trying to make.
And government of the state to make a law.
Also, let me just give
that is the court is asking the government of the state to make a law.
So
I don't know why this is the confusion.
No, Shashank, my point is not that. Unfortunately, there is no law. If someone has made any kind of statement which is immoral, that is not a punishable offense insofar as our penal code, which is now known as Bharatiya.
But that's what Shashank is saying, Advocate Madan. That's what Advocate Shashank Shekhar is saying, that the court has again asked the government to form a law. My question is, and that remains unanswered, and that is a concern that is, how can we really trust, or can the government, what stops the government from going forward, going above just regulating to becoming a censor? And that's the concern which the Supreme Court has flagged up as well. As we have seen with the Ranveer Allahabadia case, there's a thin line behind outrage and overreaction here, and it is going to be a challenge for any government of the day to manage that, especially when it comes to drawing a line in terms of formulating rules and regulations. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining me on the show. That's all we have on this urban debate. On the other side is Shreya Upadhyay with The Nation Tonight and Global Mirror. Stay tuned.